Sent from Disneyland, history in our hand. So much to say about yesterday and the decades we have spanned. Postcards from the park, this journey will embark. See what has changed and what remains on Sent from Disneyland. Sent from Disneyland.
Welcome to the Sent from Disneyland podcast.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
If it's your first time joining us, welcome. On this podcast, we'll take a journey into the past and explore Disneyland, Disneyland history, and more, with mementos, snapshots, souvenirs, and postcards sent from Disneyland, from 1955 to the present. Let's start by thanking my patrons from patreon.com. You can join in at any level to support the show and receive snail mail from my trips to Disneyland and from my desk, plus some sneak peeks and bonus content. Special thanks to Random Olive, the first patron to this podcast, and to the rest of the e-ticket patrons, Tania, Eric Daniels, Monica Seitz Vega, Bill Dreffel, Scott Cagle, Russ Romano, Michael and Christina Cross, Angela Reynolds, and Sheila Harry. C-ticket patrons Serious Inquiries Only, Debbie Weinstein, Jennifer Schneep, Grace Coate, Patty Wolin, Ben and Noel Bruning, and Greg Gorley. B-ticket patron Joshua Bell, and to the A-ticket patrons Elise Sharp, Zealot Infinity, Alexis Robles, Angel DeBlock, Daps Magic, and the Beyond the Railroad podcast. I am your host, your post-host Clocky, and today we have 2 postcards sent from Disneyland. The front of our first postcard has a horse-drawn streetcar. On the left you can see most of City Hall, and on the right-hand side of the streetcar you can see the Emporium. On the back it reads, Main Street Trolley. Dobbin stands patiently while the conductor of Main Street's trolley counts his fares before heading to the plaza at the other end of Disneyland's Main Street. It's postmarked April 29, 1958, with an Anaheim Strike Back at Cancer, Give American Cancer Society cancel, and a 2-cent red Jefferson postage stamp, Scott number 1033. I assume they visit the park on Monday, April 28, 1958, when park hours were from 10 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. The weather was a high of 72 and a low of 55. Park attendance that day was 3,212. It's addressed to Mr. and Mrs. J. Heft of Chicago, Illinois. It reads, Monday, 4/28/58. Hi folks, arrived here at Anaheim, California today at noon. Car running very good so far. Love, we 3. On a recent trip to Denver, Colorado, I went on a little drive 65 miles north to see Fort Collins, Colorado. Mentioned previously on episode 142, Sent with Goff, and episode 209, Sent from City Hall, Fort Collins was an inspiration for Disneyland's Main Street USA. Today, let's take a deeper dive into the city and its influence on the park. In the 1860s, Fort Collins was originally named Camp Collins, and was an outpost to protect the overland mail route. The Overland Trail was an alternative trail to the California Trail, the Oregon Trail, and the Mormon Trail, dipping into Colorado versus going through the center of Wyoming and Fort Laramie. The Overland Trail was most like the California Trail, starting in Missouri and ending in Sacramento, California. The original Camp Collins experienced a flood in 1864 and was moved further south. This was at the suggestion of William O. Collins, the namesake for the now named Fort Collins. The fort grew with settlers arriving and raising sheep and growing sugar beets and horse chestnuts. This led to economic growth and in the 1880s allowed for lavish homes to be built as well as local stone quarries producing materials for downtown buildings to be erected. By the 1900s, Fort Collins was known as the lamb-feeding capital, and the nearby city of Loveland built a sugar processing plant for the sugar beet crop. Jumping ahead to after World War II, Fort Collins doubled in population, causing many of the older buildings to be torn down to make room for higher capacity structures. Add some flair to your mail by checking out stamps at Enfield Post. You can explore different stamp options on our Etsy site, grab some great deals by following EP Sunday Sales on Instagram, or create something special and have her design a stamp array for your invitation or celebration. You can head over to EnfieldPost.com and explore all the different vintage postage stamps you can use on your next card or letter. That's ENFIELDPOST on Instagram and EnfieldPost.com for your wedding and vintage postage needs. Enfield Post is the official postage stamp sponsor of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. The front of our next postcard has the omnibus filled with guests at Town Square. In the background, you can see City Hall, and through some trees, you can see the Emporium. On the back it reads, Disneyland Omnibus. Disneyland's 5/8 scale double-decker omnibus carries hundreds of passengers daily on a fun-filled tour. Camera fans especially like the unique angles the omnibus's second deck provides. It's postmarked June 14, 1968, with a Glendale cancel and a 5-cent blue George Washington postage stamp, Scott number 1283. I assume they visit the park on Wednesday, June 12, 1968, when park hours were from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. The weather was a high of 78 and a low of 58. It's addressed to Jim Hoffman of St. Louis, Missouri. It reads, Hi, honey. Gee, thanks for the lovely party and permit and teddy bear. Tell your dad, Glenn, and dog, hi. Come visit me. Love, Nud. I was here Wednesday. Because of the demolition that happened, many of the buildings that inspired Main Street USA had been lost. Looking at the book titled Main Street Revisited, there are many direct examples with old photos of Fort Collins and Disneyland. First is the Larimer Courthouse, which was demolished in 1950, but was the early inspiration for City Hall. Harper Goff, who did much of the design work for Main Street USA, was born and raised in Fort Collins. Since the buildings were gone, Harper used some of the old photos and adjusted some of the architecture from the mid-1800s Empire or Georgian design to the later 1800s and turn-of-the-century Victorian look. The Fort Collins First National Bank also has a striking resemblance to Disneyland's Main Street Bank, although the Disneyland version is attached to the Opera House and not freestanding. Looking at an old building of Colorado State University, there are some eerie similarities to a concept drawing of a haunted house by Harper. The concept art includes a church, a graveyard, and a haunted house, which would have been at the end of Main Street. The look of the house is close to what Disneyland Paris has for their Phantom Manor facade. While in Fort Collins, I did see some buildings reminiscent of Main Street. There are a few blocks of buildings that have similar architectural details, and the building on the corner of Walnut and Linden has a resemblance to the Emporium and some of the other corner buildings down Main Street. Finally, something mentioned in Main Street Revisited that I noticed was where the Fort Collins trolley would have run and how it may have impacted the design of the hub and town square. Both postcards for this episode were purchased at Fort Collins antique stores, although neither of them were sent to or from Colorado. My incoming postcard is sponsored by the Art Throwdown. Art Throwdown, or ATD, is a craft hour on Instagram, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern or 6 Pacific. Art Throwdown is a wonderful community of artists who love to share their craft, from creating sticker postcards and coloring techniques to intricate paper cutting and unique crafting. It's always a treat to watch a show and occasionally get some one-of-a-kind postcards from the group. Each host brings something a little different to each show. I'll list some of the regular hosts, or you can follow Russ Romano 2021 on Instagram. The front of my incoming postcard has Mickey dressed as the Sorcerer's Apprentice. Above him are stars creating the shapes of the Matterhorn, Carthay Circle, the Pixar Pal-Around, and Sleeping Beauty Castle. It's postmarked November 7th, 2025, with a Santa Ana Eagle 1775 to 2025 cancel and a single sailboat postcard forever postage stamp, Scott number 5748A. It reads, Day 1, CDA. Day 2, Disneyland. Day 3, CDA. We did the 70 walking tour. BTW, your podcast is better. Thanks for the half clean sweep. Enjoying our time. Wish you were here. Lol. The temperatures were in the 70s. No rain. Beautiful Disney weather. Love Mom and Sharon. P.S. Sent from Disney. Thank you so much for the postcard, Mom and Sharon. I noticed that you also went to Main Street and got the Disneyland Resort rubber stamp added to the postcard. Thanks for the endorsement of my podcast. I was thinking about doing a future episode or a series of episodes that would be a fun tour of Disneyland from the mailboxes, or what my Disneyland tour would be. For those listening, send me a postcard or drop into my Instagram DMs if that's something you'd like to see or hear in the future. And finally, for those of you who don't know, at the end of every day at Disneyland, there is a final train that leaves Main Street Station at closing and does a clean sweep of all the Disneyland Railroad stations, picking up passengers to drop them back off at Main Street. Since we had one more thing to do, the three of us walked to Toontown Depot and took the train from that station halfway around, therefore doing a half sweep. Thanks for listening to Sent from Disneyland. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. It would also help to leave a 5-star rating and comment on whatever podcast platform you use. If you'd like to support the show financially, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/sentfromdisneyland. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at sentfromdisneyland or my website, sentfromdisneyland.com. For questions and comments, send me a postcard addressed to Sent from Disneyland, P.O. Box 44, Hood, California, 95639. This podcast is not affiliated with Disney, the United States Postal Service, or any post office or Disney-related properties. Opinions expressed on this podcast belong to the host and guests of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. This podcast is produced and edited by Clocky McDowell, website designed by Misty McDowell, theme song was written and performed by Noah Sunday Lefkowitz. Take it away, Noah.